The crystalline chambers of the Galactic Tribunal had witnessed the downfall of countless species. War criminals, genocidal dictators, and planet killers had all stood before its seven-judge panel, their fates sealed by the cold logic of intergalactic law. But today, something unprecedented was about to unfold. Commander Sarah Chen entered the chamber with steady steps, her hands unshackled despite the gravity of her charges. The Human Defense Corps uniform she wore bore the scars of battle, plasma, burns, tears from shrapnel, and the faded bloodstains that told stories of survival against impossible odds. Around her, the assembled representatives of 43 species whispered in languages that ranged from melodic to guttural, but their message was universal. Finally, humanity would face judgment. The charges were damning. Violation of the Kithara Accords, unauthorized deployment of biological weapons, the systematic extermination of the Vexhi colony ships, war crimes that carried the ultimate penalty, not just death, but the complete erasure of human civilization from the galaxy. Judge Kelvec, the Therian Prime Arbiter, spread his forearms wide as silence fell over the chamber. His voice resonated through the translator matrix, carrying the weight of a 1,000-year judicial tradition. Commander Chen of the species human, you stand accused of crimes against galactic peace. How do you answer these charges? Sarah looked up at the towering bench where 7 alien judges sat in judgment. The Therian's compound eyes reflected the chamber's bioluminescent lighting. To his left, the crystalline Zephyrian judge pulsed, with deep purple thoughts. The others, representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, waited with the patience of beings who had seen justice served for millennia. I answer with the truth, Sarah said, her voice clear and unwavering. I did everything they say I did. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Even her own court-appointed defender, a sympathetic Halorian named Veltar, seemed stunned by the admission. Furthermore, Sarah continued, I'd do it again. Judge Kelvec's mandibles clicked with what might have been confusion. You confess to these crimes willingly? You understand the penalty for such actions? I understand that 47 billion of my people are dead, Sarah replied. I understand that the Vexhi came to our worlds not as conquerors but as harvesters. They didn't want our planets. They wanted us. Every man, woman, and child processed into nutrient paste to feed their spawning pools. That is not, began Judge Yelandra, the Centauri representative. Let me show you something, Sarah interrupted, producing a small device from her pocket. Before the guards could react, she activated it, filling the chamber with a holographic display. The images that materialized were horror beyond description. Human cities under siege, not by armies but by massive biomechanical harvesters that scooped up entire populations. Children screaming as they were loaded into processing chambers. Families torn apart by creatures that saw sapient life as nothing, more than raw material. The Vexhi were protected by the Kithara Accords, Sarah continued as the images played. Classified as a developing species, granted territorial rights forbidden from interference, but they weren't developing. They were farming, using our own laws against us while they systematically murdered 47 billion humans. Judge Tiwar, Kelvec tried to speak, but Sarah pressed on, her voice gaining strength. You want to know about biological weapons? Yes, I authorized the deployment of the Genesis strain, a virus that targeted Vexhi neural networks specifically, leaving every other species untouched. It took my science teams 18 months to develop it, working in hidden labs while their homeworlds burned. And you know what the beautiful thing was? It didn't kill them quickly. The chamber had fallen completely silent now. Even the translator system seemed to hesitate. The Genesis strain caused their nervous systems to overload, every pain receptor firing at once for exactly 72 hours before death. Do you know why 72 hours? Because that's how long it took the average human to die in their processing centers. I wanted them to feel every second of what they put us through. Sarah turned to face the gallery, where representatives of dozens of species sat in stunned silence. You call it a war crime. I call it justice. While you debated proper protocols and filed diplomatic protests, they killed 47 billion of my people. And when I finally stopped them, when I saved the remaining human colonies and freed 17 other species from their harvesting fleets, you arrest me for violating your precious accords." She looked back at the judges, and, for the first time, her voice wavered with emotion. "I've spent 3 years in your detention centers. 3 years listening to testimonies about the regrettable but understandable actions of a traumatized and primitive species. 3 years watching you debate whether humanity deserves to continue existing because we fought back against our own extinction." The holographic display shifted, showing new images. Human refugees rebuilding their shattered worlds, children playing in settlements protected by Genesis-strained defensive networks, former slaves of the Vexhi working alongside human engineers to build a better future. "But here's what you don't understand about humans," Sarah continued. "We don't just fight to survive. We fight to make sure no one else has to suffer what we suffered. The Genesis strain wasn't just a weapon, it was a vaccine. Every species in this galaxy is now immune to Vexhi neural control. The research data has been freely distributed to all member worlds. We didn't just save ourselves, we saved everyone." Judge Kelvek's voice was barely a whisper. The implications of this..." "The implications," Sarah said firmly, "are that sometimes justice requires getting your hands dirty. Sometimes mercy means being merciless to those who show no mercy themselves. And sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to become the monster in someone else's story." She stood straighter, meeting each judge's gaze in turn. "So yes, I violated your accords. Yes, I deployed biological weapons. Yes, I committed genocide against a species that was committing genocide against mine and would have done the same to yours given time. And I sleep soundly every night knowing that 47 billion voices cry out for the justice I delivered." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Judge Kelvek began to speak. "Commander Chen, this tribunal, we need time to deliberate." "No," Sarah interrupted. "You don't. Either humanity is a species worthy of membership in this galactic community, or we're not. Either we have the right to defend ourselves by any means necessary, or we don't. Either the 47 billion humans who died matter or they don't. Choose." The 7 judges looked at each other, their alien expressions unreadable. Finally, Judge Kelvek spoke, his voice heavy with something that might have been shame. "This tribunal finds the defendant guilty of all charges as stated, but sentences heard a time already served, with full honors restored. Furthermore," he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Furthermore, this tribunal formally requests that the defendant accept the position of special advocate for defensive action, with full authority to prevent future Vexhi-type incidents." Sarah smiled grimly. "I accept." As she walked out of the chamber, past rows of silent alien observers, she heard Judge Kelvek's final words echoing through the translator systems. "May the galaxy never again underestimate the mercy of humanity, or the price of earning it."